The conference hall stretched before Haiyan-Wu like a cathedral of glass and light. 47 different species sat in their designated seats, each one representing a civilization that had bent the knee to the Galactic Council centuries ago. Some had done it willingly. Others had resisted for a time before reality crushed their hopes. Now they all sat together, united under the Council's rule. Watching as humanity's turn finally came, Haiyan-Wu stood alone at the center of the circular chamber. His black diplomatic suit felt too tight around his collar, but he refused to adjust it. Showing discomfort would be showing weakness, and humanity could not afford weakness today. Above him, the crystalline form of the speaker caught the light from a dozen different angles. Creating rainbow patterns across the polished floor, the speaker's voice came through the translation device in Haiyan-Wu's ear, smooth and certain. Ambassador of Earth, you have been summoned to hear the Council's judgment. Your species has existed in our galaxy for less than 3 centuries. In that time, you have demonstrated behaviors that concern us greatly. Haiyan-Wu said nothing. He had been instructed to listen first, speak only when necessary. Fleet Admiral Ji Hai had been clear about that during the briefing. Let them think humanity was considering their words seriously. Let them believe compliance was possible, the speaker continued. You have colonized 17 star systems without Council approval. You have developed weapons technologies that violate the Pax Galactica agreements. You have refused to integrate your neural interface systems with the Council's collective database. Most concerning, you have shown a disturbing tendency toward independent action and aggressive expansion around the chamber. Representatives from other species nodded or made their equivalent gestures of agreement. The Cleth Ambassador, an insectoid creature standing nearly 3 meters tall, clicked its mandibles in what Haiyan-Wu's briefing materials had identified as satisfaction. The Vorans, aquatic beings floating in their specialized gravity tanks, pulsed with colors that indicated approval. Even the Mechis, half organic and half machine, displayed green status lights that meant they agreed with the assessment. Therefore, the speaker said, and Haiyan-Wu felt his stomach tighten, the Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will surrender all military vessels to Council custody within 30 standard cycles. You will submit to technological regression, removing all weapon systems that exceed approved specifications. You will accept vassal status and Council oversight of your government, economy, and expansion policies. You will share all technological developments with the Council before implementation. The chamber fell silent. Haiyan-Wu could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. 30 standard cycles meant roughly 42 Earth days. 6 weeks to give up everything humanity had built, everything they had fought for, everything they had dreamed of becoming. Failure to comply, the speaker added, almost as an afterthought, will result in military intervention. The Council's fleet is already positioned around your territory. 8,000 warships currently maintain formation at strategic points throughout human space. Compliance means survival. Defiance means extinction. Haiyan-Wu looked around the chamber slowly. He saw pity in some faces, satisfaction in others, and complete indifference in most. These species had all made the same choice humanity was being offered. They had chosen survival over freedom, safety over sovereignty. They had accepted the Council's protection and guidance. And in return, they had given up the right to determine their own future. The Cleth Ambassador leaned forward. Your species is young, it said through its translator. You do not understand the benefits of Council membership. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years. No major wars. No planetary extinctions. No genocides. All species prosper under our guidance. Prosper, Haiyan-Wu repeated, tasting the word. Is that what you call it? The speaker's crystalline form shifted slightly. You question the Council's benevolence? I question whether prosperity without freedom is truly prosperity, Haiyan-Wu said. But that is not my decision to make. I am merely a messenger. Earth's government requires time to consider your terms and formulate an official response. How much time? The speaker asked. 48 hours? The chamber erupted. The Cleth Ambassador screeched. The Voran's tanks bubbled violently. A dozen other species shouted or made their equivalent sounds of protest. The speaker raised what might have been a hand, and silence gradually returned. 48 hours, the speaker said slowly. Humanity wishes 48 hours to decide whether to accept survival or choose extinction. Very well, the council is not unreasonable. You have your time, Ambassador Haiyan Wu. Return to Earth. Consult with your leaders. But understand this. We have offered these terms to 17 civilizations before you. 16 accepted and prospered a day. One refused and exists now only in historical archives. Haiyan Wu bowed slightly, a gesture that could be interpreted as respect or simple acknowledgement. He turned and walked toward the exit, feeling the eyes of 47 species watching his back. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss, and he finally allowed himself to take a deep breath. The shuttle back to the human diplomatic ship took 20 minutes. Haiyan Wu spent that time reviewing the recording of the meeting, noting the speaker's exact words, the reactions of different species, the implicit threats woven through polite language. By the time he reached the ship, he had composed his preliminary report. Captain Sung Ho met him at the airlock. How bad? Complete surrender or total war? Haiyan Wu replied. They have 8,000 ships positioned around human space. They expect us to comply within 42 days. Sung Ho whistled softly. And if we refuse? Then they demonstrated what happened to the last species that refused. Haiyan Wu moved toward the communication center. I need to speak with Earth immediately. Fleet Admiral Jihai needs to hear this directly. The quantum link established within seconds. Jihai's face appeared on the screen, and Haiyan Wu saw President Taesoon standing behind her. Both looked tired, as if they had not slept since Haiyan Wu had left for the council station 3 days ago. Give me the summary, Jihai said without preamble. They want everything, Haiyan Wu replied. Complete military surrender, technological regression, vassal status, council oversight of all government functions, compliance, or extinction. Those are our only options according to them.
I sang.
And they truly believe we will simply surrender? That humanity will choose comfortable slavery over difficult freedom? They have 3,000 years of precedent, Haiyan Wu said. Every species they have encountered has made that choice. They believe we will too, Chai smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then they do not understand humanity at all. Return home, Ambassador. We have 48 hours to prepare our response. Let us make sure it is one the Council will never forget. The transmission ended. Haiyan Wu sat in silence for a moment, thinking about the speaker's words. 8,000 warships. The largest military force ever assembled in this region of space. All positioned to crush humanity if they refused to kneel. He thought about Earth. About the billions of humans who would never accept subjugation. He thought about the colonies, about young children growing up on distant worlds who deserved the chance to determine their own futures. He thought about every human who had ever fought for freedom, who had chosen danger over safety, who had refused to surrender, even when surrender seemed logical. The Council had made a fundamental error. They had assumed humanity was like every other species they had encountered. They had mistaken youth for weakness, small territory for insignificance. They had offered humanity a choice between survival and freedom. Expecting that survival would win, they were about to learn that humanity had never responded well to ultimatums. The shuttle began its journey back to Earth, carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. In 48 hours, humanity would give its answer, and the Galactic Council would discover that some species would rather burn the stars than bow. Before them, 47 hours had passed. Haiyan Wu stood once again in the council chamber, but this time he was not alone. General Menesio stood to his right, her military uniform crisp and decorated with ribbons that represented battles the council had never heard of. To his left stood Chief Scientist Jay Wan, carrying a data tablet that contained information the council would very much wish they had never demanded. The chamber felt different today. The representatives of the 47 species seemed more relaxed, confident. They had seen this scene before. A young species, faced with overwhelming force, would return with acceptance of the inevitable. Some would ask for better terms. Some would beg for mercy. all would eventually bend. The speaker's crystalline form glowed brightly in the center of the room. Ambassador Hyan-Wu, you have returned. We trust Earth has reached a decision regarding the Council's generous terms. Hyan-Wu stepped forward. His heart was steady, his voice calm. Earth has indeed reached a decision, Speaker. Our government has reviewed your ultimatum carefully. We have consulted with our military leaders, our scientists, our politicians, and our citizens. We have considered every aspect of your offer, and, the speaker prompted, no negotiations. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Then chaos erupted. The Cleth ambassador shot to its feet, mandibles clicking furiously. The Voron's tanks sloshed violently as they thrashed in disbelief. A dozen species began shouting at once, their translators creating a cacophony of outrage and confusion. The speaker raised its form high. Silence. The chamber gradually quieted. Ambassador, perhaps your translator malfunctioned. Did you say no negotiations? The translator worked perfectly, Hyan-Wu replied. Those are Earth's exact words. No negotiations. No surrender. No compliance. You demanded humanity's submission. We decline. The Mechi's representative's lights flashed red. This is madness. You have 300 ships. We have 8,000. Your population number is 8 billion. The Council represents 2 trillion sentient beings across the galaxy. The mathematics are clear. You cannot win. Minesio stepped forward, and her smile was cold. You are correct about the numbers. Your fleet does outnumber ours approximately 27 to 1. Your technology has been refined over millennia, while ours is barely 3 centuries old. By every logical calculation, we should surrender immediately. Then why do you not? The Cleth ambassador demanded. Because you have made several critical miscalculations, Minesio continued. First, you have assumed that humanity is like every other species you have encountered. We are not. Second, you have assumed that your military experience makes you superior warriors. It does not. Third, and most important, you have assumed we fear death more than we value freedom. That is your fatal error. Jaewon activated his data tablet, and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber. It showed the Council's fleet 8,000 ships arranged in perfect tactical formation around human space. The formation was textbook military strategy, designed to blockade and intimidate. Your fleet positioning is excellent, Jaewon said casually. Every approach vector to human space is covered. Every major colony world is under your guns. Every supply line is threatened. From a strategic standpoint, it is flawless. The speaker's form pulsed with satisfaction. Then you understand your position. You understand yours, Jaewon replied, and the holographic display changed. New markers appeared, thousands of them, scattered throughout the space where the Council fleet sat. For the past 20 years, while you believed humanity was desperately trying to build a fleet to match yours, we were actually engaged in a different project. We seeded every Council approach vector with weaponized singularity mines. The chamber went silent again, but this time it was the silence of dawning horror. Each mine, Jaewon continued, his voice clinical, is capable of creating a localized gravitational anomaly that will tear a hole in space-time itself. Your shields, which are designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, will not stop gravity. Your armor, which can withstand temperatures exceeding a star's core, will not protect you from being pulled into a dimensional tear. Your fleet is sitting in a carefully prepared kill zone. The Voron ambassador's colors shifted to patterns indicating fear. You are bluffing. Such weapons would be suicide to use. You would destroy your own shipping lanes, make entire regions of space impassable. Yes, Minesio agreed. For approximately 50 to 70 years, by our calculations. After that, the singularities would collapse and space would return to normal. Humanity can survive 50 years of isolation. Can the Council survive the loss of 8,000 ships? The Cleth ambassador's mandibles clacked rapidly. This is barbaric. You would destroy space itself rather than accept peace. Hyan-Wu spoke then, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber. You did not offer peace. You offered subjugation. There is a difference. Every species in this chamber accepted your terms because they valued survival over freedom. They evolved on worlds where cooperation meant safety, where following the strong ensured prosperity. Humanity evolved differently. I gestured to Minicio. Tell them. Minicio's voice was matter-of-fact, almost lecturing. Earth is what xenobiologists classify as a death world. Our planet has tried to kill us since we crawled out of the oceans. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, predators that could crush us with a single bite. We survived not by accepting our place in the natural order, but by fighting it every single day. We invented warfare before we invented agriculture. We created weapons of mass destruction before we reached the stars. We have spent our entire existence preparing for extinction. She paused, letting that sink in. You believe your military experience makes you superior, but you have fought wars of conquest and expansion. We have fought wars of survival. You fight to win territory. We fight to continue existing. You stop when the cost becomes too high. We stop when we are dead. Gawain brought up another display. You also demanded our neural interface technology. You wanted us to integrate with your collective database. We refused, and now you understand why. Every human soldier, every pilot, every officer is connected through quantum-linked neural interfaces. We do not have a command structure that you can decapitate. We do not have communication lines that you can sever. Humanity operates as a single, distributed intelligence. When one human learns something, all humans know it within seconds. The Mechi's representative's lights flickered. That is impossible. The processing power required. The bandwidth necessary is beyond what your species achieved, because your individuals never needed to coordinate at that level. J1 interrupted. You evolved cooperation as a social choice. We evolved it as a survival mechanism. Every human can think independently, but we can also function as cells in a larger organism. You are not facing a government or even a military. You are facing an entire species operating as one coordinated war machine. The speaker's form dimmed slightly. This changes nothing. Even with your weapons, even with your neural links, you are still outnumbered. We can bring more ships. We have reserves you cannot match. Ahinwu nodded slowly. Yes, you can bring more ships. You can throw fleet after fleet at us. Eventually, through sheer numbers, you might win. But let me tell you what that victory will cost. He began walking around the chamber, looking at each species in turn. First, you will lose thousands of ships. The singularity mines alone will destroy a third of your current fleet before the battle even begins. Second, every ship you lose cannot be easily replaced. You have been at peace for 3,000 years. Your industrial capacity is built for maintenance, not rapid military production. Third, and most important, every species in this chamber will watch as you throw fleet after fleet at humanity, and they will see you bleed. He stopped in front of the Cleth ambassador. You will see that the council is not invincible. You will see that resistance is possible. And some of you, maybe not all, but some of you, will begin to wonder if you made the right choice all those centuries ago when you accepted council rule. The chamber was silent. Hyenwu could see calculations happening behind various eyes. The Michi's representatives' lights had shifted from red to amber. The Vorans had stopped thrashing in their tanks. Even the Cleth ambassador had gone quiet. The speaker finally spoke. You would sacrifice your entire species rather than accept our protection. Protection? Minesio laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. You do not protect. You control. You have kept peace by suppressing any species that might challenge you. You have prevented wars by preventing freedom. And now you expect us to thank you for offering us the same comfortable cage every other species occupies. Hyenwu raised his hand. We did not come here to argue philosophy. We came here to deliver Earth's response. You gave us an ultimatum. Now we give you one. Withdraw your fleet from human space within 72 hours. Recognize humanity's sovereignty and our right to self-determination. Agree to mutual non-aggression in equal diplomatic relations. And if we refuse? The speaker asked. Then we activate the singularity mines, Jaewon said simply. Your fleet dies in the first 30 seconds. Then humanity goes to war against the council. We will lose eventually. But we will make you pay for every planet, every ship, every human life. And when you finally crush us, you will find that the galaxy has changed. Because every other species will have watched humanity choose extinction over submission. And some of them will start to wonder if freedom might be worth the cost. The speaker's form pulsed with colors that Hyan Wu's briefing materials identified as extreme anger. You are insane. Your entire species is collectively insane. Perhaps Hyan Wu agreed. Or perhaps we simply understand something you have forgotten. That some things are worth dying for. That freedom is not negotiable. That survival without dignity is just a slower form of death. He turned to leave, Menesio and J1 following. At the door, he paused and looked back. You have 72 hours. We suggest you use them wisely. The door closed behind them, leaving the Galactic Council chamber in stunned silence. For 3,000 years, the Council had been the supreme power in the galaxy. No species had ever refused their ultimatums. No civilization had ever chosen defiance over survival. Until now. The Council's response came exactly 71 hours and 43 minutes after Hyan Wu delivered humanity's ultimatum. It was not a withdrawal. It was an attack order. The 8th Fleet, 300 ships strong, received orders to advance on the human colony at Proxima Centauri and demonstrate the cost of defiance. The Council expected the usual outcome. Humanity would see their colonies burning and immediately reconsider their foolish choice. Captain Sung Ho stood on the bridge of the ECS Indomitable, watching the tactical display as 300 enemy ships moved into attack formation. His frigate was one of 47 human vessels defending Proxima. By every military calculation ever made, this should be a massacre. 300 against 47. The Council's ships were larger, better armed, and had centuries of combat experience behind their designs. But military calculations assumed both sides played by the same rules. Humanity had never been good at following rules. All ships. This is Sunjo, he said calmly through the neural link. Every human captain, every pilot, every gunner heard him simultaneously. The Council fleet is advancing. They expect us to either run or surrender. We will do neither. Execute Plan Hammer. On Earth, Admiral Jahai monitored the battle through her own neural link. She could see through the eyes of every captain, access the tactical data from every ship, feel the tension and determination of every human in the battle space. This was what the Council had failed to understand about humanity's neural network. It was not just communication. It was total tactical integration. The Council's 8th Fleet entered weapons range and opened fire. Energy beams lanced across space, targeting the human defensive positions. The Indomitable and 5 other frigates appeared to take direct hits. Their shields flared and died. Hull breaches registered on Council sensors. The Cleth Admiral commanding the 8th Fleet chittered with satisfaction. 6 enemy ships destroyed in the opening salvo. This would be easier than expected, except the 6 ships were not destroyed. They had never been there at all. Humanity had learned many things from their brief time among the stars. One of the most useful was that most alien species relied heavily on sensor technology. Their eyes had evolved on different worlds with different light spectrums, and were often less reliable than their instruments. So they trusted their sensors implicitly. That trust was a weapon that destroyed. Ships had been holographic projections all along. The real human fleet was elsewhere. Their positions masked by sensor-dampening fields that Earth scientists had developed specifically to fool Council technology. While the 8th Fleet congratulated itself on destroying phantoms, the real attack began. Sung Ho gave the order. Fire our KMS. Archem stood for a relativistic kill missile. The concept was simple, almost primitive by galactic standards. Take a solid tungsten rod. Accelerate it to 99.9% of light speed. Point it at the target. Physics handles the rest. The Council had advanced shields, exotic armor, energy weapons that could boil oceans. But they had focused so much on sophisticated technology that they had forgotten the basics. Mass times velocity equals momentum. At relativistic speeds, Even a small mass carried more energy than a nuclear weapon. And shields designed to deflect energy beams did absolutely nothing against solid matter moving at near-light velocity. 6 Council dreadnoughts died in the first microsecond. They did not explode dramatically. They simply ceased to exist as coherent objects. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to half a continent worth of power. Debris expanded outward at significant fractions of light speed, tearing through 2 more ships that had been in close formation. The Cleth Admiral's chittering turned to screeches of alarm. Evasive action. All ships scatter. But scatter was exactly what Sung Ho wanted them to do. A tight formation could provide overlapping defensive fire. Scattered ships were isolated targets. The human fleet emerged from their hiding positions, moving in perfect coordination. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was, where every enemy vessel would be in the next 10 seconds, where every shot needed to go. Young Dashmi sat in strategic operations on Earth, her mind linked to the battle network. She was not giving orders. That was not how the human neural link worked. Instead, she was processing data, identifying patterns, suggesting strategies that every connected human could access instantly. When she noticed that 3 council ships were moving into a formation that would leave them vulnerable for exactly 4.3 seconds, every human captain knew it simultaneously. 3 ships died in those 4.3 seconds. The battle spread across thousands of kilometers of space. The Indomitable danced between enemy fire. Its pilot Haisu, reacting not just to what she saw, but to what 36 other pilots were seeing. When an enemy ship targeted her from the left, she knew it before its weapons charged, because another human ship had detected the power buildup. When she fired her missiles, she did not aim at where the enemy was, but where 5 other captains had calculated it would be. The Council fleet had experience. They had fought wars of conquest across a dozen star systems, but they had always fought against enemies that operated independently, with hierarchical command structures that could be disrupted, with communication delays that created tactical gaps. They had never fought an enemy where every soldier was effectively psychic, where every ship moved as part of a larger organism. It was like fighting a school of fish or a flock of birds. Except these birds carried weapons that could crack planets. The battle lasted 8 hours. The Cleth Admiral tried everything. He attempted to overwhelm individual human ships with numbers, but the targeted ship simply withdrew, while others covered its retreat. He tried to establish a defensive perimeter, but human ships flowed around it like water. He even attempted to target the human command ship, thinking that destroying it would break their coordination. There was no command ship. Every ship was the command ship. Every captain was the admiral. Destroy one, and the others adapted instantly. When the 8th Fleet finally retreated, they left behind debris fields where 300 proud warships had once sailed. The Council's first fleet engagement against humanity ended in complete disaster. 247 Council ships destroyed or disabled. 43 human ships damaged. 7 destroyed. The mathematics that had seemed so certain before the battle now looked like a nightmare. But humanity paid a price too. The Indomitable was not among the survivors. In the 6th hour of battle, Sung Ho had seen an opportunity to destroy a council carrier that was launching strike craft. The shot was perfect, the timing exact, but it required him to move into the overlapping fire of 3 enemy cruisers. He took the shot. The carrier died. So did the Indomitable and its 47 crew members. On Earth, Jahai felt Sunjo's death through the neural link. One moment he was there, his thoughts clear and determined. The next moment, nothing. 47 bright minds that had been part of humanity's collective consciousness simply vanished. She felt every one of them go dark. She gave herself exactly 10 seconds to mourn. Then she began reviewing the battle data, preparing for the next engagement. Because there would be a next engagement. The Council would not accept this defeat quietly. The Cleth Admiral's report to the Council was marked with shame. The humans fight unlike any enemy we have encountered. They do not have commanders that can be eliminated. They do not have communication systems that can be jammed. Every ship moves as if guided by a single intelligence. yet operates with perfect independence. Their weapons are primitive, but effective. Their tactics are unconventional, but devastating. The council convened an emergency session. The Vorin representative displayed colors that indicated deep concern. We have lost the 8th Fleet, 300 ships. This is unprecedented. No species has inflicted such casualties on council forces in over a millennium. The Mechi's ambassador's lights flickered through calculations. The humans are using quantum-entangled neural networks. Each individual is independent, but connected. We assumed this was for civilian coordination. We did not anticipate its military applications. Our countermeasures are designed for centralized command structures. They are ineffective against distributed intelligence. The speaker's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been anger or fear. What do you recommend? Immediate total war, the Cleth representative demanded. Send the main battle fleet. 5,000 ships? Crush them before they can prepare further. Every hour we delay, they dig in deeper. The Vorin disagreed. We should negotiate. Perhaps offer better terms? This war will cost resources we have not had to expend in centuries. The Mechi's ambassador said nothing. But its lights had shifted to a color that indicated calculation rather than recommendation. The speaker made the decision. The main battle fleet will advance on Earth itself. We will end this quickly. Humanity will see their homeworld under our guns and surrender. They must, but in the quiet of its crystalline chambers, the speaker reviewed the battle data from Proxima Centauri and felt something it had not experienced in 600 years of leadership. Doubt. The humans had not fought like a species. Desperate to survive, they had fought like a species that had already accepted death and decided to make it expensive for their enemies. That scared the speaker more than any. Weapon humanity possessed? On Earth? President Taesung addressed the planet. Today we won our first battle. Captain Sung Ho and his crew gave their lives to ensure that victory. We honor their sacrifice. We remember their names. But we do not mourn them as if they died in vain. They died doing what every human understands in their bones, fighting for the right to determine our own fate. In the orbital shipyards, construction crews worked around the clock building new vessels. In the asteroid belt, mining colonies that had seemed civilians suddenly revealed themselves as military foundries. On the moon, weapon platforms emerged from beneath fake crater floors. And throughout human space, 8 billion people connected through neural links prepared for the next phase. The Council had sent a fleet to teach humanity a lesson about power. Instead, they had learned that power means nothing against a species that refuses to submit. Now the main battle fleet was coming, 5,000 ships strong. Enough to glass Earth itself if necessary. Admiral Jihai reviewed the defense plans one more time. The casualties would be horrific. Millions would die, maybe tens of millions. But humanity would make sure that the Council paid such a price that the entire galaxy would know the cost of demanding humanity's surrender. No negotiations, she whispered to herself. Those 2 words had started this war. Those same 2 words would define how it ended. Regardless of who won, the main battle fleet arrived in Sol System like a storm of metal and fury. 5,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled in this region of space. They came expecting to find a broken enemy, ready to surrender after seeing the fate of Proxima Centauri. Instead, they found Earth's entire solar system transformed into a fortress. Admiral Jihai watched from the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Earth through the neural link. She could see through the sensors of every defensive platform, every ship, every soldier in the system. 8 billion humans, connected as one, preparing to defend their home. The Council fleet entered the outer edge of the solar system, and the first surprise hit them. What their sensors had identified as asteroids began moving with purpose. Hundreds of rocks that should have been dead, pieces of ice and stone suddenly lit up with engine signatures. Mining colonies that had appeared abandoned came alive with weapons platforms. Survey stations revealed themselves as military outposts. The entire asteroid belt was armed and ready. The Cleth admiral commanding the main fleet chittered with frustration. They have militarized everything. Every piece of rock is a potential threat. Advance toward Earth, the Council's command structure ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. They cannot have enough weapons to stop 5,000 ships. The fleet pushed forward past Jupiter's orbit. That was when the second surprise struck. Jupiter's moons, places the Council had assumed were simple colonies, launched coordinated attacks. Europa spat out missiles by the hundreds. Ganymede revealed orbital railguns that had been disguised as resource extractors. Io's volcanic surface hid launch platforms that sent relativistic kill missiles screaming toward the Council formation. The Council fleet began taking casualties before they even reached the inner planets. Not many, not yet, but enough to show that every step closer to Earth would be bought with blood. Lieutenant Biora sat in a command bunker on the moon, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. She was part of Cyber Warfare Division, and her job was something the Council had not anticipated. While the fleet fought in space, she fought in data streams. The Council's ships communicated through quantum-encrypted channels. Very sophisticated, very secure. But the encryption was designed by species that had never needed to protect against their own kind. They had evolved in environments where trust was the default, where deception was rare. Their security was built to keep secrets from allies who might be curious. It's not from enemies actively trying to break in. Humanity had evolved different. Humans had spent thousands of years lying to each other, stealing from each other, tricking each other. Human children learned deception before they learned algebra. Human teenagers could hack systems before they could drive cars. And human governments had spent centuries in cyber warfare against other human governments. The Council's unbreakable encryption lasted 43 minutes. Biora and her team did not just intercept Council communications. They published them. Every transmission, every order, every private message between Council species was suddenly broadcast on every frequency in every language. The Cleft discovered that Council leadership considered them useful but expendable shock troops. The Vorans learned they were valued only for their industrial output, with internal documents referring to them as resource producers. Dozens of smaller species found themselves classified as minimal strategic value in Council planning documents. The perfect unity of the Council began to crack. Not much, not yet, but fractures appeared where none had existed before. Meanwhile, the space battle intensified. The Council fleet reached Mars and found that humanity had turned the entire planet into a weapon. Mars' orbital space was filled with mines, drones, and automated defense platforms. The red planet's low gravity had allowed humanity to build mass drivers that could launch its projectiles directly into Council formations. Admiral Jihai watched the casualty numbers climb on both sides. 200 Council ships destroyed so far. Humanity had lost 90 vessels and 6 orbital platforms. The numbers seemed to favor the Council, but Jihai knew mathematics did not tell the whole story. The Council was losing ships faster than they had in any war in centuries. They were bleeding, and the entire galaxy was watching them bleed. The final defense line was Earth's orbit itself. The moon had been converted into a massive weapons platform. Orbital fortresses ringed the planet. Ground-based mass drivers pointed upward, ready to fill space with tungsten death. And 8 billion humans, connected through neural links, prepared to fight for their home. President Taezong stood in the command center beside Jihai. Can we win? Jihai was silent for a moment. Define win. Can we destroy their fleet? No. Can we make them regret coming here? Absolutely. The Council fleet entered Earth orbit, and humanity unleashed everything. Orbital platforms fired until their barrels glowed white-hot. The moon launched RKMs in waves that turned space into a shooting gallery. Ground-based weapons hurled metal into the sky at velocities that turned atmosphere into plasma, and the human fleet, outnumbered 10-1, charged directly into the Council formation. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded in flowers of nuclear fire. Energy beams carved through holes like hot knives through butter. Debris traveling at relativistic speeds turned nearby vessels into shredded metal. The space around Earth became a graveyard. But humanity's strategy was not to win the battle. It was to make the battle so costly that the Council would question whether conquest was worth the price. On the surface of Earth, Dr. Hejin worked in a hospital in what remained of Shanghai. The city had taken a direct kinetic strike from a Council cruiser that had broken through the orbital defenses. 3 million people died in the first seconds. Now Hejin and thousands of other doctors worked to save whoever they could from the ruins. A young girl, maybe 7 years old, was brought into the emergency room. Burns covered her arms and her leg was broken. She looked up at Hejin with tears in her eyes. Are the bad aliens going to kill us? Hejin felt the neural link in her mind, connecting her to every other human. She felt Jihai's determination, Taesung's resolve, Bior's fierce satisfaction at every hacked council system, and billions of others refusing to surrender. No, sweetie. We are going to show them that Earth is not theirs to take. The battle raged for 18 hours. The Council fleet hammered at Earth's defenses with everything they had. They expected humanity to break, to raise the white flag, to beg for mercy. Instead, every time they destroyed a defensive platform, 2 more popped up from hidden locations. Every time they thought they had cleared a section of orbital space, mines they had missed, destroyed ships trying to advance. The turning point came when humanity deployed its final surprise. The sun itself became a weapon. J1 had been working on stellar manipulation technology for 5 years. It was experimental, risky, and potentially catastrophic if it went wrong. But the theory was sound. The sun was a massive fusion reactor, constantly releasing energy. With the right equipment, that energy could be directed instead of simply radiating in all directions. 3 satellites hidden in close solar orbit activated simultaneously. They created a magnetic field that redirected a coronal mass ejection directly toward the Council fleet's rear formation. Billions of tons of plasma traveling at a significant fraction of light speed struck the unprepared ships like the hand of an angry god. 400 Council ships died in that single strike, not destroyed by weapons they could defend against, but simply overwhelmed by the raw power of a star. The survivors in the rear formation broke and ran, and once one group broke, panic spread. The Cleth Admiral tried to rally his forces, but discipline was fracturing. His ships had taken 40% casualties. The humans were still fighting as if they had not lost a single vessel. And now the reports from BR's cyber warfare team were spreading through the Council fleet. Every species was learning what the Council leadership really thought of them. The Michi's ships were the first to withdraw. Their lights shifted from battle red to neutral amber, and they simply turned around and left. The Vorans followed soon after. Then the smaller species, ones who had been dragged into this war without understanding why humanity had to be destroyed. The Cleth remained, driven by pride and fury, but even they could see the mathematics had changed. They had started with 5,000 ships. Now they had less than 3,000, and humanity was still fighting. The planet below was burning, yes, but it had not surrendered. The Admiral made the call. All Cleth vessels, withdraw. Retreat to Council space. The Battle of Seoul ended not with humanity's surrender, but with the Council's retreat. They left behind more than 2,000 destroyed warships, debris fields that would be visible from Earth's surface for months, and the shattered certainty that had defined their rule for 3 millennia. But humanity paid a price too. Shanghai was gone, a crater where a city had stood. Tokyo had taken a plasma strike that killed 2 million. London, Paris, Delhi, Lagos, Mexico City all bore scars from orbital bombardment. Luna Base 7 was destroyed with all 15,000 personnel aboard. Orbital platforms that had protected Earth for generations were now twisted metal floating in space. 40 million humans dead. Cities burning. Orbital infrastructure shattered. The cost of defiance, written in blood and fire across humanity's homeworld, Admiral Jihai stood among the ruins of the command center, which had taken damage from a near-miss kinetic strike. Half her staff was dead. The neural link was filled with pain and grief from billions of humans mourning their losses. But beneath the pain was something else, something the Council had not expected. Pride. Humanity had faced the largest, fleet ever assembled against them and survived. They had not won, not exactly, but they had not lost either. They had shown the galaxy that the Council could bleed. President Taizong addressed the survivors, his face gaunt from exhaustion. The Council came to teach us a lesson about power. Instead, they learned about determination. They came to force our submission. Instead, they learned the price of demanding it. 40 million of our people are dead, but they died free. They died refusing to kneel. They died showing the universe that humanity will never surrender. On the Council's home station, the speaker's crystalline form had dimmed significantly. The stress of the war was literally breaking its physical structure. The Council convened an emergency session. But for the first time in 3,000 years, they were not unified. Species were demanding explanations. Why had they gone to war against humanity? Why had the casualties been so high? Why had the leadership's private communications been so dismissive of allied species? The political situation was deteriorating rapidly, and worse. 17 species were now openly discussing withdrawal from the Council. If humanity could resist, could they? If humanity could survive, could they? The questions that the Council had suppressed for millennia were suddenly being asked out loud. The galaxy had changed. The Council's absolute power had been challenged, and every species in the galaxy had watched it happen. Humanity's defiance had cost millions of lives, but it had bought something that might be worth the price. Proof that the Council was not invincible. 3 weeks after the Battle of Seoul, Ambassador Hyenwu received a message that surprised him. Speaker Prime Velthor. The ancient crystalline entity that had led the Galactic Council for 6 centuries requested a private meeting. No guards, no diplomats, no recording devices. Just 2 individuals talking face to face. The meeting took place on a neutral station. A small outpost in empty space halfway between Council territory and human space. Hyenwu arrived alone as requested. He found Velthar waiting in a simple observation room, the crystalline form catching light from distant stars. Velthar's form was dimmer than Hyenwu remembered. Fractures ran through the crystal structure, visible signs of stress and age. The speaker was dying, he realized. The war had broken something fundamental in the ancient being. Ambassador Hyenwu, Velthor said. The voice translated into something resembling weariness. Thank you for coming, Speaker Velthor, Hyenwu replied, keeping his tone neutral. Your message said you wished to talk. I am here to listen. Velthor's form pulsed slowly. I am dying. The crystalline matrix that comprises my body is fracturing under stress. I have perhaps days remaining. Before I fade, I must understand something. Why? We offered your species safety, protection, a place in the galactic community. Yes, as vassals, but you would have lived. Your children would have grown up in peace. Your people would have prospered. Why choose this war? Why choose death and destruction over guaranteed survival? Hyenwu looked out the observation window at the stars. He thought about Shanghai, about the crater where millions had lived. He thought about Captain Sungo and the 47 crew members of the Indomitable. He thought about 40 million humans who had died defending Earth. Then he thought about 8 billion who had chosen to fight rather than kneel. Because your protection was also our prison. Hyenwu said carefully, every species you have guided has stagnated. They became satisfied with what you gave them. They stopped striving, stopped dreaming, stopped reaching for something beyond their grasp. They became comfortable, and comfort is the death of progress. Velthor's form flickered, and progress is worth dying for? The freedom to pursue progress is worth dying for, Hyenwu corrected. Speaker humanity climbed down from trees using nothing but determination. We crossed oceans on wooden ships because we wanted to see what was on the other side. We split atoms, touched the moon, and reached the stars because people told us it was impossible. Striving is what we are. You wanted to take that from us? You wanted us to stop reaching. That is something we literally cannot do and still be human. We thought we were so advanced, Velthar said, and if a crystalline entity could sound sad, it sounded sad then. 3,000 years of peace, of order. of protecting the galaxy from chaos. And you have shattered it in 3 months. The Council is fracturing. 17 species have declared independence. The Mechis have requested a non-aggression pact with humanity. The Cleth have withdrawn to their home systems in shame. The ancient alliance is breaking apart. Not breaking, Hyan Wu said gently. Changing. The galaxy does not need overlords, speaker. It needs partners. Equals working together by choice, not by force. Velthor was silent for a long moment. Then the ancient being laughed, a sound like chimes in the wind. We believed ourselves to be the galaxy's protectors. We believed that our experience, our wisdom, our power gave us the right to guide younger species. We never imagined that our protection had become oppression, that our guidance had become control. You have taught us a painful lesson, Ambassador. We did not want to teach it, Hyan Wu replied honestly. We wanted to be left alone to find our own path. You forced this war. Yes, Velthor agreed. We did, and now we face the consequences. Tell me, what will humanity do now? Your world is damaged. Millions are dead. Will you seek revenge? Will you become the new conquerors, taking the Council's place? Hyan Wu shook his head. No, we are not interested in empire. We are interested in freedom, not just for ourselves, but for others. The species leaving the Council need help building their own identities, their own futures. Humanity will offer that help, not as masters, but as friends. Friends, Velthor repeated. What a strange concept. The Council has not had friends in a very long time. Only subjects and enemies. Perhaps that was the problem, Hyan Wu suggested. Velthar's form dimmed further. I have one final request, Ambassador. When I die, the Council will need new leadership. Younger beings, ones not so attached to the old ways. Will you help them understand this new galaxy? Will you teach them what you have taught me? If they are willing to learn, Hyan Wu promised, back on Earth, reconstruction had begun. Dr. Haijin worked in a temporary hospital built in the ruins of Shanghai. The city would be rebuilt, but it would take years. The crater where 3 million had died would become a memorial, reminder of the cost of freedom. The young girl with burns and a broken leg was recovering. Haijin visited her daily, checking her progress. Today the girl was sitting up, drawing pictures with crayons that someone had donated. She looked up when Haijin entered. Dr. Haijin, are the aliens gone? Yes, sweetie. They left. Did we win? Haijin sat down beside the bed. We survived. Sometimes that is its own kind of winning. The girl thought about this for a moment. My mom says we fought for freedom. What is freedom? Haijin smiled sadly. Freedom is the right to make your own choices, even when those choices are hard. Freedom is the ability to succeed or fail on your own terms. Freedom means nobody else controls your life. Was it worth it? The girl asked, gesturing at her bandaged arms. My mom died in the attack. Was freedom worth that? Haijin felt tears forming. Your mother thought so. She chose to fight rather than live under Council rule. She died so you could grow up free to be whoever you want to be. Was it worth it? I cannot answer that for you. Only you can decide what her sacrifice meant. The girl was quiet, then went back to her drawing. It showed Earth, blue and green and whole, with tiny ships flying around it. Not Council ships. Human ships. Free to go wherever they chose. Admiral Jihai stood in the ruins of the Orbital Command Center. Engineers were rebuilding, but it would take months. Through her neural link, she could feel the collective mood of humanity. Grief, yes, but also pride. Relief, yes, but also determination. They had survived the Council's best attempt to break them. President Taizone approached, carrying a datapad. The Mechis have officially requested a defense alliance. The Vorons want to establish trade relations. 37 smaller species are asking for help in establishing their own governments independent of Council control. So we have gone from fighting a war to building a new galactic order, Jihai said. I preferred the war. It was simpler. Taesoon laughed tiredly. War is never simple. Peace is harder. But we will figure it out. We always do. 6 months after humanity's defiant no negotiations, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was no longer the supreme power it had once been. The new leadership, younger and more flexible, approached humanity with proposals for mutual cooperation rather than demands for submission. A new alliance formed. It's called the Free Systems Coalition. No dominant species, no vassals. True cooperation between equals. The Mechis were first to sign, their logical minds appreciating the efficiency of genuine partnership. The Vorians followed, relieved to be valued as equals rather than resources. Then dozens of smaller species, ones who had lived under council rule for centuries and were finally tasting freedom. Humanity did not lead the coalition. They participated as one voice among many. When species asked for help, humans offered it. When species wanted to solve problems themselves, humans stepped back. When conflicts arose, humans mediated rather than commanded. Lieutenant Biora found herself working not in cyber warfare but in cyber education. She taught other species how to protect their communications, how to build proper security, how to defend themselves in digital space. Some species were shocked to learn about human hacking culture. Others were fascinated. All learned that security built on trust was no security at all. General Menesio retired from active service. She opened an academy where she taught military strategy to officers from a dozen different species. Her first lesson was always the same. You can have the best weapons, the finest ships, the most experienced commanders. But if your soldiers do not believe in what they are fighting for, you have already lost. Humanity won because we believed freedom was worth dying for. What do your soldiers believe? Chief Scientist Jay Wan led a research initiative that included scientists from 20 different species. They shared knowledge freely, collaborated on projects, and made discoveries that would have taken centuries working separately. The neural interface technology that the Council had demanded by force was now shared willingly with those who wanted it. On Earth, the memorial walls went up. 40 million names carved in stone, each one a person who had refused to surrender. People came from across the planet to touch the names, to remember, to mourn. The crater in Shanghai became a park, with gardens growing where buildings had stood. Life returning to replace death, President Taesone gave a speech at the memorial dedication. These names represent the price of freedom. 40 million people who chose death over submission. We honor them not by forgetting what they fought for, but by ensuring their sacrifice meant something. We build a galaxy where no species has to make the choice they made, where freedom is the default, not the exception, where every intelligent being has the right to determine their own fate. Ambassador Hyanwu attended the ceremony for Speaker Velthore's passing. The ancient crystalline form had finally fractured completely, the individual matrix returning to its basic elements. Other council species attended, many of them species that had been silent partners in humanity's war. They looked at Hyanwu differently now, not with fear, but with something approaching respect. One of the younger council members approached him after the ceremony. Speaker Veltor told me about your conversation. They said you taught them something they had forgotten. That protection can become oppression. That wisdom can become arrogance. That power alone does not grant the right to rule. The speaker was wise to understand that, Hyanwu said. Will humanity teach us how to be better? The young council member asked. Hyanwu smiled. Humanity cannot teach you how to be better. You must figure that out for yourselves. But we can walk beside you while you learn. We can be partners in building something new, not masters and servants. Just people working together toward a common goal. And what is that goal? A galaxy where every species is free to reach for the stars on their own terms, Hyanwu replied. Where cooperation is chosen, not forced. Where peace comes from mutual respect, not imposed order. Where nobody ever again has to choose between freedom and survival. 3 years after the war, Earth had healed. New cities rose where old ones had fallen. The orbital defenses were rebuilt, stronger and more sophisticated. But the weapons platforms carried a new designation, defensive only. Humanity had proven it could wage war. Now it would prove it could build peace. Captain Young Woo, Sung-ho's younger brother, commanded the new ECS Indomitable, named for his brother's ship. He patrolled human space not looking for enemies, but for those who needed help. When a Vorin colony reported pirates, the Indomitable responded. When a Meki's research station lost power, the Indomitable provided aid. When a species humanity had never encountered before sent a distress call, the Indomitable arrived to offer assistance. The galaxy learned a new lesson about humanity. They were dangerous when threatened. They were relentless when fighting for freedom, but they were also generous when safe, helpful when able, committed to building a better future for everyone. The Council's 3,000-year reign as unchallenged supreme power was over. In its place emerged a new galactic order based not on dominance, but on cooperation. Not perfect, never perfect, but better than what came before, and improving every day, because humanity had given the galaxy a gift they never expected: the courage to be free, the willingness to stand up to power, the understanding that some things are worth fighting for, and most important, the knowledge that freedom is not negotiable. 8 billion humans looked up at the stars, had defended and saw not threats, but possibilities. They saw other species learning to stand on their own. They saw a galaxy slowly transforming from a hierarchy of power to a community of equals. They saw the future they had fought for becoming real, and they reached for it with both hands, knowing that the striving itself was what made them human.